Today we're going to paint the Bloody Cardinal from Kings of War Champions starter set. I'm really excited about painting this one. It's a really beautiful model. It's pretty awesome, pretty sinister. I'm going to be doing this in a less than traditional way. If you see the box art, you will see that the demons underneath the rock are red. And we're going to do something a little bit different with this one. Everything else will stick with traditional, but we're going to be painting these demons in a black color with blue eyes. So it's going to be pretty awesome. So the first color we're going to use is Smoke Black. And Smoke Black, I use it because it's a very sooty black. When you paint it and it dries on the model itself, you will see that it leaves a smoky texture or a burnt texture, like burnt and charred ground, which is the effect we're going for. And after that is all put on the solid surfaces, we are going to touch up the demons. We're not going to touch the demons with the Smoke Black paint, but we're going to touch up the demons and the flames underneath the rock. This is important because we're going to be doing the flames with a yellow and an orange and a fluorescent orange, and we don't want any of that white to be turned black because it would actually create too much of a shadow. We want to put that yellow on and it be more like a filter for that white and make it look nice and hot. So we're going to just touch up all the demons too. Even though we're going to be painting them black, I want to make them pop out so I can see them with the black paint as I'm painting them. That step's not necessary, but I figured I'd at least do it so I could see it for my own security. And after that is done, that step is finished, we are going to paint all the demons in a very flat black color. I used the Vallejo here. I had Max Darth, which is a Green Stuff World black, which I think is the blackest black I've ever seen, but I didn't have any. Ran out. I used that in my primer and my airbrush and ran out and didn't realize it, so I went ahead with a Vallejo black, and it does the job. And I paint all the demons, their heads, their arms, and everything in this black. And you will be able to tell the difference between the Smoke Black and the pure black, because the Smoke Black is kind of a dark gray black, and the black is black as night. So then we're going to also take our off-white and we're going to touch up our flames again, because sometimes when you're painting that black, you kind of get some carryover. Then we're going to dry brush our smoky black that we put on there first, and we're going to do this with a pale gray first, and we're going to go over all the rocks and the ground in a pale gray and cover the entire surfaces. Take your time with this. Make sure you get the edges, and when you are dry brushing, make sure you get the majority of it off. Trust me, it will show up. If you think you took too much off, take a test piece on something else and you'll see that you didn't. And once we got that pale gray dry brush, we're going to use a grimy gray. Now this one's got a little bit of a red tone in it, but it's still very white, and it goes really well over the top of the and around the very edges. It is a brighter color than the pale gray, trust me on this one. And it also gives a little bit of color variation where you have a warm gray and on top of a cool gray. A little variation in the stone. And again, this is a charred base. It's from the demon world. Then next we're going to take our pale yellow and Smoke Black, and we're going to mix that together, drop of regular black in there, and we are going to highlight our black demons, the ones that are kind of up and out from the rocks. You want to put a little highlight wherever the light is showing on them, just to show that they've emerged from the rock and they have a little bit of a shadow going on from the light source. Another thing we did with the off-white is we painted all of the demons' eyeballs in off-white as well. The reason for that is we're going to break out our AK cyan ink, acrylic ink. And I cannot say enough about these inks. They're fantastic. I use them all the time to paint quickly and to get really bright colors. And we're just going to go over all the demon's eyes down below, just the eyeballs. And you will see that it's pitch black with a glow of blue eyes just emerging under there. So you can't see anything except for the eyes. It's pretty cool. Then we're going to grab our volcanic yellow. We're going to start painting our flames. We're going to mix this yellow 50-50 with water. We're going to make it pretty translucent. And we're going to cover all the flames in its entirety in this yellow. It's kind of our base for the fire and the flames coming out from underneath the base. Then we're going to change over to our medium orange. We're going to mix it 50-50 with water, the same as the yellow. And we're going to be a little bit more selective. We're going to be leaving the crevices alone and just painting the tops in this orange. It's okay if you overdo it with the orange because the next step will bring it all together. I typically will go with all of the high points and I will leave just a bit of the crevices taken care of because we're going to come in with a fluorescent orange, which is a very, very translucent color. And we're going to dry brush over what we just did, kind of blending the yellow and the orange together. And it gives a really nice effect for the flame. It looks like they're blended together really well. Makes it look more natural. And then we're going to go with dirty yellow. And the dirty yellow, we're going to pick little pieces out in the crevices. And we're going to mix that with some water on my brush. We're just going to stipple it onto the fire. Just showing some of that yellow coming through, but the dirty yellow is a little bit more of an orange yellow than the volcanic yellow. It's a little bit less of an orange color than our base coat yellow is. And just stippling it on there gives it the effect of the burning. Then we're going to take our dirty red, and now dirty red is very strong. You want to really dilute this down with water and just hit the very tips of the flame, the very highest point of the flame. And then I'm going to go back in with that same dirty yellow. And we're just going to touch it up, put some more stippling in it, especially around that red. And that red is very strong, so you don't want to use a lot of it. But to blend it in, you can dry brush it with the fluorescent orange again, or you can just stipple some yellow up there to kind of blend it in as well. So now that our base is done, we're going to start on the skin. And we're using AK's ink again. This one is Blood Scarlet. I love this color on a white base coat. It looks fantastic. It's bright and vibrant. And you want to mix this with your magic sauce, which is the Deep Shades medium from AK. And you just slap it on there just like you would a contrast paint, except I think it's goes on a lot smoother, and you can just leave it alone, paint it on there and leave it alone. And when it'll dry with some natural shadows in the crevices. We're going to carry on covering all of the hands, the face, the arms, and all the crevices. We're going to start inside and work our way out. So if you're looking at the model, the skin is the innermost part of this miniature. And when you're doing this, don't worry about getting it on other stuff or making a mistake, because you're going to be going over everything else with a natural base coat and not using an ink per se. And even if you were to use an ink, you can actually grab a white or an off-white and paint over the mistake you made, and you'll still have that bright white undercoat. And once our skin is completely finished, we're going to move to leather brown. And leather brown is what we're going to use on his skirting and his belt and his straps. And we'll just do a nice base coat. And when you see me dipping into the palette there, I do have that mixed together with a 25% water to 75% paint for a base coat. Just want a nice rich base coat on this leather. Just take your time getting into those little nooks and crannies. Try real hard not to hit your skin. If you do, it's no big deal. You can go over it again, but you have to paint it white, and then you'll have to paint it with the red. Now that the pigment in these AK inks actually will cover up brown. It's actually kind of shocking. And now we're going to give it a nice wash. The whole leather and our skin of some Agrax Earthshade. You really want to avoid pooling. Don't let it pool. Make this a very controlled wash. So if it's pooling on the flat surfaces, you just want to take your brush across it and wipe it away, but making sure that it stays in the crevices on the skin and on the leather. And there we go. Now we've darkened that pigment down, but it's very strong. So now we're going to go in with a little bit of a highlight on the skin. We're going to use AK's Matte Red, and we're going to mix it 50-50 with water, and we're just going to pick out the spots on the skin that stand in the light. So the light source coming from above and at a 45-degree angle, which is how I primed it with a Zenithal that way. It was primed in black, and then it was Zenithal with a spray can. Of course, you want to highlight his head for sure. Just want to put this on the folds, the top of the folds, the flat surfaces that we just talked about, where it's on the smooth flat surfaces and not in the crevices of his skin. And once we have that highlight, we're going to take some off-white, we're going to add it to our red, and we're going to do a further high highlight on the skin of this miniature. And we're just picking out the highest points on the face, maybe on the knee, the spots on his skin that actually will stand out if light were to hit it. And now we're going to take pale yellow and off-white. So we took our pale yellow off camera and our off-white, and we painted the eyes and the teeth on the face. And then we're going to switch over to a leather brown again after our Agrax is dry, and we're going to highlight the leather and the belts and the skirting all back in its base color. And we're just going to hit the smooth high points, the big surface areas, and the things that catch light. And then we're going to add a little bit of khaki into our mix. It's a 50-50 mix, just like it always is. Water to paint, so it's a leather brown, and a little bit of khaki, a couple drops of khaki. And we're going to do the highest of the high points where the light hits the leather and the skirt. And now we're going to switch over to the gunmetal. And the gunmetal is what I use for all armor, silver armor as a base coat. And we're going to base that armor in its entirety in our gunmetal. Take your time with this. Be careful about where you've painted the things before, where your leather there. Just be careful not to hit it. But if you do, it is no big deal. You can actually go back over and fix it. No problem. Even the skin. So once you got all the metal done, we're going to grab some pure white, and we are going to fix the little mistakes on the skulls and on his horns that we accidentally hit with the gunmetal. Then we're going to take some skeleton brown dip from Green Stuff World. I love this stuff. Anything skulls, anything nails, anything claws, or anything like that gets a base coat of this dip. It's wonderful stuff. It's kind of like a contrast paint, but I think it gives it more of a brown look, and it spreads out more evenly than it does a contrast paint. And it's a good base color, not only for skulls, but for wood handles as well, which is what I'm going to paint right here. Just putting this over the top of the white. And if you do a couple coats, it's a nice, deep, rich brown. Then we're going to move to our bone white and give a highlight to his nails. We're going to use this 50-50 with water. And we're going to highlight his horns. And that can be done in any manner you'd like. But just remember to try to make lines on the horns to make them look more realistic. You could even go over it with the skeleton dip again later on. We'll give it more definition. But more importantly, we're going to highlight the skulls. We're going to leave the deep crevices of the skulls alone. And we're just going to use this 50-50 water mix with the bone white as our highlight. And if you want, you can add a little bit of more bone white or a little bit more white to the bone white to make an even higher highlight. Watered down bone white should be enough. Once that's finished, we're going to take khaki again, and we're going to paint straps on his hammer. And I'm using khaki because I use this as the highlight for the skirting and the leather, and keeping kind of the colors copacetic together with each other is a good idea, especially when you're using it on some parts but not the other. Our grimy gray again, we dry brushed with that, and we're going to highlight our horns with the grimy gray, and the skulls just a little bit, just in their faces. Very, very high points on the skulls, and the straps as well, and the nails and claws. Then we're going to take our Agrax Earthshade again, and we're going to cover that khaki over the khaki straps with that. And then we're going to highlight those straps with khaki again, going back to our base color. And we're just hitting the high points on the straps, just so they stand out a bit. And as you can see, the colors kind of just go together with each other. And our grimy gray we're going to use again to highlight our straps, just on the very high surface on the front where the light hits it. And we're keeping our colors very close to one another, trying to highlight with other highlights that are on the model, and it just brings it all together. So now we're going to tackle the hammer. And the hammer, we're going to start with this yellow again, the dirty yellow. And we're just going to give a nice watered down base coat, 50-50 with water, over the top of all the flame of the hammer. On the bottom of the hammer, I did paint that in gunmetal. And once we have that base coated and completely yellow, we're going to take our medium orange, and we're going to kind of overbrush here and stipple, but we're going to stick to the higher flames, and we're going to leave the crevices completely alone. And we're going to be using our translucent orange to dry brush all this to kind of blend it together. So don't worry about making a mistake. There's no mistake with flame. There really isn't, because you can just keep going over it with the oranges and yellows, and it looked just fine. So here's our fluorescent orange, and we're just going to give it a quick dry brush to kind of blend those together. And you'll notice that it'll darken it down a bit, especially in the crevices. So we're going to go back with our volcanic yellow, and we're going to stipple that in the hottest parts of the flame, which is at the bottom, and then throughout kind of the crevices, and then dots here and there to give it the illusion that it is burning. So now we're going to go back to our dirty red, and this is a very strong color. Just make sure you water it down significantly so it'll blend nicely. We're only going to get the very, very tips of the flame in this red, and we're not going to go crazy with it. And then we got this Tuberous Gray, which is basically a black gray, but when you dry brush it over the top of the red, it looks wonderful. It looks like it's really cooling off back there. And we're also going to use our Tuberous Gray here to make some cool spots that are super hot burning and leaving the ashiness behind on the bottom of the hammer. And we're just going to touch up our yellow as well, putting a higher highlight, a little bit more white in our yellow, and just at the bottom to make it super cool. Then we're going to take our Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to put that over the entirety of the metal parts across the whole miniature. Everywhere there is metal will get an Agrax Earthshade. Now you could use a Nuln Oil if you wanted to make it look more blackish, but I wanted his armor to be a little dirty, so that Agrax Earthshade gives it a nice dirty brownish metal look. And we're going to go back to our metal with some chainmail silver, which is a brighter silver than our gun metal, and we're going to put a light dry brush over all the edges of all the metal. And if you are to get a little bit of this metal on any of your other, the skulls or the hammer or the leather or anything like that, or the red, just go back in and touch it up. It'd be real simple. It's a small spot. And don't forget the belt buckle. And there it is. There's your Bloody Cardinal, all finished from start to finish. Took me about 5 hours, and it was a lot of fun to paint. Ta-ta!